Our current system is just, it's broken.
It's energy draining when you are already in a position where you are completely depleted.
It's not about funding, it's about safeguarding, doing the right thing.
If my dad had been offered early intervention, we might not have gone through 17 years of horror.
We are Derby Speaks Up, and we are campaigning to urge our local policymakers to fund early intervention behaviour change programmes to divert domestic or partner abuse at the earliest signs. People might ask why, what's wrong with the current system and programmes we've already got? The current justice system is not delivering justice. The rates of convictions and outcomes from the courtroom cannot be described as justice. They are incredibly low, and that's just for the small proportion of cases that make it that far. Many cases are never reported or only become aware to the police when things have escalated to medium or high risk. We need to get in earlier for the sake of women, for guys, for everyone, for children, for everyone in our communities affected by domestic abuse and the way that it tears people apart. We can do this. Other cities are doing this. So Derby Speaks Up.
I think the current system is very slow, the progress isn't always there.
It's letting victims down, it's inapproachable, and for many people you can only access it once things have escalated, and even when you do, we know that so many cases fall through the gaps and don't progress to the courtroom.
It's a bit like a postcode lottery with the police and our court system, depending on who arrives.
Even if you happen to get a conviction, that might not be 18 months down the line, and within that 18 months, that person may have damaged another 3 or 4 people.
And it feels like that nobody's willing to look at something different. Nobody wants to do anything different because, well, we've got this here, it's too much of a mammoth task. But they're not listening to the people on the ground that could help make that change.
Not everyone trusts these spaces. Sometimes these spaces have been used against victims.
The current system often lacks sufficient focus on addressing the root causes of abusive behaviour and can be inaccessible to certain populations.
I think a lot of families, because, that there are disputes or arguments or disagreements, and I think that early intervention, it's more kinder, and it's more approachable, for families. They don't want to go to the extreme at that stage. From my experience as well, if, early intervention was in place, things could have been different.
In cases like my own family's, intervention early on might have helped my dad to realise what he needed, access help, learn to express his emotions, which would have prevented some of the violence.
Certainly when I was involved with Women's Aid, situations where women wanted to be with a husband but couldn't see any, or sometimes did go back and then had to return to a refuge or be got to a safe place. Because there was no ongoing support to help that change in attitudes and behaviour, I think it would be cost effective, quite apart from being socially really important.
Many people have been brought up in abusive homes or have toxic influences around them, social media, friendships, etc. This behaviour has become normalised. We need to create safe spaces for men's support groups led by men who are good influences. This will help men see what a healthy relationship looks like. Discussions like this can help eliminate toxic, abusive traits.
It breaks my heart that my good nature was taken advantage of. I'm gutted that I only learnt about boundaries, gaslighting, red flags and narcissistic abuse after I escaped as part of my recovery. Sometimes I can't help but imagine how different my life might be if I hadn't been abused. So I would support early intervention so that no one else would unwittingly have to experience abuse too.
I support the idea because it will lower high rates of abuse and risk of harm. It enables earlier interventions that challenge perpetrator behavior and provide strong safety planning and support.
First and foremost, safety has to be essential. Places that partners and children can go to process it, maybe counselling, coaching, family therapy, things like that mean that the whole family can heal together.
I'd be really excited to see behaviour change programmes offering support with attachment styles and people learning where some of their wounds and insecurities come from, and then they will get support to heal those, because often those are the root causes. Healthy conflict resolution skills. I wish we were all taught this, at school. It should be really on the national curriculum. How to be a good partner, how to manage your emotions and reactions in a healthy way, how to show up for each other in a way that is loving and caring and to be cherished. And I think everyone should be able to call their relationship or their home their safe place, their sanctuary.
The projects that are developing around supporting people with drug problems, drug and alcohol problems, like the Change is Possible, like the one in Derby, which is the Jericho House, I think it's called. I can only think of things along those lines where people would be actually learning to look at their behaviours in an analytical but not punitive way, but looking at why is it we keep doing things like this? How can we begin to change?
To show them what a healthy relationship looks like, respect, boundaries, tools and resources where when you feel like this or you start to feel like this, this is what you can do, this is where you can go, this is who you can speak to. I just think there's so many communities. We know that the early intervention would help most that need it. And I'd like to see it not just for the high risk women, that it needs to be for all. I would like it that we all have a space at that table to make that decision, design that early intervention programme.
Expressing emotions, strategies to de-escalate situations, educating people that it's okay to say, I'm sorry, can we talk about this later? Things that give people the chance to adapt the way they behave.
I think one of the biggest issues, and it's something that I've struggled with myself, is emotional regulation. And I've called it this beautiful thing, passing the pain parcel. Sometimes we get given somebody else's pain parcel. They might have had a really bad day. They've not been emotionally regulated for 1,000,001 reasons. Tired, overworked, stressed. And I can comprehend why, when you're sitting with that, you don't want it. You don't want it. So you go, I don't want that. You have it. And that's where somebody will shout or get angry or they'll snap at their children. And when we're not able to go, okay, I've got a pain parcel here. All right, let's unwrap it. Let's see what this is about. Why has it caused me pain? What is it triggering in me? We're less likely to want to get rid of it so quickly in such an abrasive way, in such a hostile way. I found quite a lot of the times people that fall under the perpetrator umbrella are really struggling to process the amount of pain parcels that they have. And it's really easy to demonize a perpetrator. And I've had to do so much work on that myself. It's not helpful. It doesn't help. It doesn't bring peace. It doesn't bring relief. And yes, I'm all for sitting there and being honest and saying something was done wrong to me. I shouldn't have been treated that way. But to just point the finger and go, well, they're this and they're that is not helpful. What are they dealing with? What pain parcels are they struggling to process right now? And if they were given the help to process their pain parcels, maybe they wouldn't be shifting them onto other people.
through counselling, restorative justice techniques, active therapy to address trauma and support groups. Ideally, people could transition from hurting others.
Understanding patriarchy and misogyny, self-examination, addictions and triggers, peer accountability circles, mental health, risk reduction plans, respect and equality.
It's really important that victims have access to intervention without having to go through the police or government agencies, because there's a lot of fear and mistrust for good reason. Racialised communities, women, disabled people, LGBT communities, people who have arrived to the UK and have uncertain immigration status or on a spousal visa, for example, are often very fearful that if they come forward and seek help that they may face consequences. But again, for many women, they don't want prison and punishment, they want support and they want early intervention to change the behaviour.
Not everybody wants to go to the police. Not everybody's had very good experiences with the police. And maybe they don't want a big police presence. Police can be very intimidating, especially if two giant men come around your house, you know, and you've got children. It escalates it to a point where if you've got children and you're involved in one of those kinds of relationships, or your neighbours, there's so many reasons why you don't want to go that route. It's very visible and it's very public.
It's important for perpetrator programs to be accessible without involvement from police or agencies, because it encourages earlier intervention, encouraging them to acknowledge their issues and come forward, reducing the stigma associated with seeking help, ultimately leading to a higher likelihood of perpetrators addressing their abusive behavior and preventing further harm to victims.
So it would be great to be able to access this through going to a GP or an online referral. I think there should be a QR scan code in every sports club and every gym changing room, you know, out in just social spaces and every bus stop. You know, it should just be normal as part of society that we know there are problems with not everyone being able to find the way to be the best partner they could be, and we can help them to make a change on that by healing the root causes. So I think we should just make it so much easier for people to access this, because we know that going through state agencies isn't going to work for everyone.
I believe if faith and community group leaders understood the issues, the signs, then they could both be exemplar role models as well as points of contact.
It has a major impact on the children, their education, their learning, their development.
As a disabled survivor, an earlier intervention program would have prevented further escalation of the abuse. Also, it would have reduced the long-term impact on me.
There is a lack of long-term funding. I was part of a charity that sadly closed down due to lack of funding. As a result, they had to close their doors. They should not have to heavily rely on fundraising projects to sustain themselves.
The impact of the trauma of having experienced abuse can last years, if not a lifetime. Wouldn't it be fantastic if we could put something into place that would stop the abuse before it resulted in so much harm?
Purely financial basis, it would cost them less to have to than intervening at a later stage when things are really difficult. But in a more positive way, I mean, you know, just an improvement in the whole of our society and values for the next generation as well.
Definitely over the years of working with women, you know, they'll ask, can we get him some help because he wants to change? But in that old-fashioned sense, depending on where you've worked or where you work, you're told that no, it's a blanket no, that we can't get involved in that, so we don't get involved. But looking now, I believe once is once too many to be harmed. But if that person get help, that's going to save the NHS around mental health and a load of other issues. It's going to save call-outs to the police.
So even when there's a man who voluntarily wants to work on himself and knows that he doesn't want to behave this way in this relationship and wants to change, I've been in situations where me and a team of people have put together a package of help, but we've been ringing around trying to find a behaviour change programme we can get him on. He's keen, he wants to change and be better, the people in his life, but we phoned around national and local helplines and organisations, and there was just nothing he could go on voluntarily if it wasn't already in the policing system and at sort of usually graded medium or high risk already. And that really showed the problem of and why we need more early intervention programmes more accessible. We even rang the Respect UK helpline, which supports men who want to change, and they were saying that the closest programme he could get onto was in another county, so he'd have to travel. Because that county only put funding for its own members of its local community to go on that, he would have had to pay several £1,000s to have a place on that programme. So you can just see all the barriers that are in place to stop, or even when they've actually got the will and motivation to want to engage in a programme. And that's something I think we can solve. Public funds should be really prioritised for public crises like the crisis of domestic abuse and the harm it does to our society and to the next generation growing up around angry, unsafe home environments. So I think we need to reprioritise where we put the funding that we do have, and to know that actually prevention is always better than reacting later on when things have escalated. A court case costs so much more than putting on mentoring therapy and a peer circle of men getting together, learning from each other and supporting each other on this journey to be healthy partners. Would cost less than taking a huge court case and all the staff and resource that takes up in the public administration system. And often by then things have escalated and it's too little too late. So we can find the money, and it's going to cost less in the long term, and the human cost just can't be quantified.
It's worth a try. If we can save somebody's life, it's worth a try.
I think it's a good idea, just so that people can have an idea of what an unhealthy relationship looks like. Is a healthy relationship remembering her birthday or his birthday? But what do we do on those days in between? What does it actually look like? How do we address conflict?
Yeah, seeing it obviously firsthand and dealing with post-sentence, obviously following they've been through court, the programmes that they go on and stuff like that, definitely would be very much in support that. Preventative would be better than having to deal with it, the aftermath. I think as well in my line of work we're seeing more obviously now with the controlling and coercive behaviours that previously weren't actually against the law, so definitely those behaviours seem to have escalated.
If there is a hotline or there is a platform to help them, they could seek help or seek any guidance or assistance in a private background or private situation, that they could have some more secure feelings, feeling safe, and then not being judged.
I think it needs to be like a quicker avenue to go down rather than waiting months and months going on a waiting list, and then it's almost like a taboo subject that, if there's a group of 10 lads and one of them is going through that, they probably haven't told their friends about it, and I think it needs to be more of an open conversation for people to speak about it more freely.
Definitely. I think just mainly for that reason of, especially in my line of work, the influx that we're having or we're seeing at the moment, it would just be better if there was something preventative more than kind of catch it at that stage, because people might not also be aware that they are engaging in such concerning behaviours. And if it just takes one person to speak up of that partner, hopefully then that might save future partners.
So I think early intervention, like some talks, seminars, or even therapy. Actually, I'm a music therapist, so I have also worked with those people affected by domestic abuse. So I understand from their background, they may not realize what they are facing too. So I think have this campaign that could help them, educate them to understand what the situation, what's the circumstances.
Early intervention is something that is good for society in general. Healthy, happy relationships lead to healthy, happy children, lead to a healthy, happy society.